Yeah. So the awakening journey is hard, isn't it? Yeah, but there are certain waves to it, you know. So we're going to talk a little bit about this today and how we might be able to recognize when we're riding a wave. So let's talk about that today. So Mercury was in retrograde, wasn't it, throughout the month of October, and then there's sort of this thing afterwards where there's a little bit of a shadow, where it's still sort of going on, but not really. You know, what's a Mercury retrograde about? You know, switch off if you like, but you know, for just a minute, I'm just going to describe from my experience what it is. Like people, so what it means, I think, is that Mercury looks like, if you look like it's going through a telescope, it looks like it's moving backwards, but it isn't. It's just something to do with the Earth's orbit and the way that it just looks. It's not actually going backwards, but that's why they call it the retrograde, right? And it has an effect on our lives. Like, do you know, I was so silly before. I was so stuck into societal norms and society's ways of being. Like, it's really obvious, isn't it, that planets have an effect on us. Like, our body, science knows this, right? Our body is 75% water, roughly, give or take, right? The moon, a planet that's separate to Earth, right? That actually affects the water of the whole entire world. It's the thing that creates tides. And so there's definitely an effect that the moon also has on our body. It definitely has an effect on the female anatomy, right? And so, of course, anything in our solar system is going to have a gravitational pull and therefore an effect on us. And it's also going to be mirroring something in us too. And so my teacher once said to me one day, he says, you know, it doesn't matter whether you know or not why you're feeling bad. It could just be that Pluto's having a bad day. And I laughed, you know, like the arrogance of that. I laughed and I was like, you're an idiot. But actually I was an idiot because we're all so interconnected with things that of course they make an effect on us, isn't it? And I can't believe we didn't see that before. Anyway, the reason I was sort of talking about that was because Mercury retrograde was the most retrograde I've ever retrograded. And that was a post by somebody in the Facebook group, so I can't claim that, but it made me laugh so much because I resonated with it, huh? And probably some of you too do as well. Nonetheless, what we're here to talk about, we're here to talk about riding the waves of awakening. And the reason I've started with all of that is because sometimes life is really hard. And we know that, don't we? Sometimes we lose faith in ourselves. And I know for sure over the last few weeks I completely lost faith in myself. I lost utter belief in everything that I was doing, and I was thrown once again into the darkness. However, life does this wonderful thing, doesn't it? Where you get to the top of a wave. Imagine you're a surfer, you get to the top of a wave and you're like, oh God, you know, yeah, this is great. And then you start coming down that wave that's huge, it's a tidal wave, right? And you start bricking it. You're like, oh my God, I'm not sure I can handle this. What's going on? Is it going to tip me over? Is it going to be the end of me? And we get a little bit about cataclysmic, don't we? Oh, that's it. You know, I'm going to never make any more money again, or I'm never going to find a lover again, or blah, 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 wherever we are in our journey, you know, the mind will do this, it becomes cataclysmic. But it's just a wave. We can completely lose sight of our self-belief too. It's what happened to me. The light went out in me, gone, just gone, no self-belief left. But why was this happening? Well, life created external experiences for me so that I may become strong. And of course, now that I've ridden the wave and I've learnt the lessons that that wave of awakening was bringing to me, and of course, you know, whenever you're coming down that wave, every time, even though you've been into the unknown before, you forget. You completely forget. And though sometimes you remember, of course, if it's a small wave, but for me this one wasn't, it was a big one. And you're going to ride big waves at times. And you're going to probably forget that life has your back, always has done. We're not separate from it. It's always bringing experiences and people for us so that we can become that thing that life wants us to be. And as well, we want it too. But we have to go through certain trials and tribulations for that. And for me, it was about becoming strong around other people's projections. And I was talking to my teacher and he said, well, yes, I had to deal with this too. And as soon as I was strong enough to be able to deal with this and deal with other people's crap and bat it away and help and then be able to offer a different opinion while still respecting their delusions, because we have to do that, isn't it? Whether they have a delusion or something, we still have to respect it and say, okay, I get it, right? It's not true, but this is the way it is for you, huh? He said, once I managed to do that, I suddenly became very busy. And he said, you'll likely become very busy too. And I must tell you, it happened that way. And so whenever we're in a dark, dark moment, riding a wave of awakening, the speed of which and the depth of which and the scariness of the unknown of which is so strong in you, then recognize, please, you don't have to, but I wish I knew this then. I did know it then, but not really, I forget, because I'm clumsy and I'm human, and we're all human and we all forget, don't we? But when we're in a really dark moment, and people always say this and it becomes so cliche, but sometimes you have to break down to break through. And my God, it's so true. There was a moment, 2 weeks ago when I was basically crying to my girlfriend and just saying, do you know what, I don't think I can do this anymore. Life just threw me one too many punches. There were 4 occasions where I got punched, and of 3 I could have dealt with. It was tough, but I could have dealt with it. That 4th one knocked me out, But thank God it did, because through those experiences, I'm now stronger. And so you will be too, because I know you guys have been going through your own stuff, because that's the way that it works, right? But just recognize that each section, each wave is making you the person that you're meant to be. When you're on this path, you're on this path. Life's not going to forsake you. You can't get it wrong. We seem to believe that we can do actions that make us wrong, isn't it? But when we're on this path, that is just not true. That is just not true. It's about the belief in the wrongness of the actions that we're doing that make it seem as though we're doing something wrong. But in fact, you can't get it wrong. You'll never get it done. That's the point of being eternal. And that's what makes sometimes, if we can remember this truth inside of this, coming down the wave so exciting. It's what makes the dark, unknown, scary moments so exhilarating. Why? Because that which I am, my essence, is eternal. And that's what makes the darkness okay. I hope this video helps. Yeah, just remember it's a pulse. That's why we do the yoga. We voluntarily expand and contract. And of course, that gets harder to do as the postures get harder. And so we're constantly putting ourselves into a contracted, painful moment, only to expand again in the next moment, in the next pulse, just to go a little bit deeper next time. Why are we doing that? Well, we're doing that to remind ourselves that this is just what life is like. It expands, it contracts. Emotions do the same. They contract, they become really tight, oh my God, and then they leave, they expand. Life is pulsing. We are in that pulse of life. It's just like a wave. And sometimes it can feel like a tidal wave. But trust me, the bigger the wave, the bigger the reward at the end of it. I mean that deeply. Here's to riding the waves with a little bit more grace next time. Those are words for me, but I'm sure they resonate to you too. And trust in the mercy of God. Lots of love. Namaste.